from a broken marriage and a broken bank account to becoming a multimillionaire. This is Nita Patel's story, and today we're going to talk about her journey and how she got there. Hey guys, today we have Nita Patel in the studio, and this is going to be an amazing story, not only in terms of where she is today, but how she started, and we're talking about off-market deal domination. So Nita, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew.
So Nita, how long has it been that since we've known you?
8 years.
8 years, right? It doesn't even seem like it. I was kind of shocked. So you've been on a long journey, right? Let's kind of first, just to give people an idea why we have you here, is today, in the last 8 years, in the first 3 years, how many transactions would you say you did?
Not many. I would say I did like 2-3 transactions a year.
Okay.
It's because I struggle with my own mindset.
Okay.
You know,
and I want to kind of go there because that's a big part of it, right? At that time, you did maybe 2 or 3 transactions.
a year, yeah.
A year,
That's it.
right? And a lot of times you're afraid, you were not sure, all the normal things, right? That everybody goes through. It's like you weren't unique, but everybody goes through those things, right? And then, and around maybe third or fourth year, you started kind of picking up. So today, if I asked you, how many wholesales have you done?
I've done like over 50.
Over 50 wholesales. How about flips?
About 25.
About 25 flips. And how many rental properties do you have today?
We have 26 right now.
26. And so the whole conversation today is, how do you basically go out, find properties off market? Because today the market is competitive. It's not going to get any simpler. It's going to be more competitive. But off market, there's just such a blue ocean kind of opportunity that exists, right? So I want to kind of go back. Who was Nita Patel growing up? Was this bold person that today I see as a wise woman, you know, mother, wife, that seems to have her life together? Who was Nita Patel?
Nita Patel was a broken woman, you know, when I had met you.
Sure.
Right? You guys did help. You guys provided the education, right? But it was me who had, you know, the broken mindset. And a lot of it had to do with previous relationships and a lot of childhood traumas. You know, as a kid, we were neglected. I know, like, it's hard to believe because, you know, I'm an Indian, right? But even us Indians are neglected at a young age.
Hold on. Indian families are perfect, man. What are you talking about, right? We have
No.
perfect families. We don't sweep anything under the carpet, right?
No.
Our parents are perfect. Everything is perfect in an Indian household.
No,
right?
our parents are not perfect. They're actually really good at shutting us down. That's what creates a lot of issues, you know, as an adult, right? So we were neglected a lot, you know, like myself and my siblings, because, you know, my parents, they did the best with what they had at that time, right?
Sure.
And when we came from India in 1989, you know, they started labor jobs, right? And it was 2 of us. It was my sister and I, and then my parents had 2 more kids, right? So for them, you know, providing the love, you know, was giving the love was, you know, providing food on the table, right? But that's not what we need as a kid, right? You need that love, affection, that attention, right? Which we didn't get. So when you don't get it at home, you look for it outside of the house, right?
So hold on. So the typical, and a lot of, I think, immigrant families, right? Because the general impression is, oh, every Indian person in America is rich. That's not the case, obviously.
No.
Right? And a lot of times, and it's not just about we're kind of using that because that's your heritage, but it happens all across the board, right? But a lot of times, it's especially with immigrants, what more do you want? We're giving you food. You have enough to eat. You go to school. You have 10 times more than what we had back in India, right?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of what it is. And it's not that they're purposely trying to do that, but that's all they know. And they're trying to make life work. And the only thing they know is kind of put one step kind of ahead of each other.
Right.
Right? So now that obviously leads to, as a teen in your early 20s, you seek for acceptance, affirmation, other things outside.
Validation.
Validation.
You become a people pleaser. You know,
Right.
I became a people pleaser where, you know, like at home, I was miserable, depressed, you know, for a long time. But then outside of the home, you know, you're like surrounding yourself, you know, all the time with friends. You become a people pleaser,
Sure.
right? Because, you know, you don't know that there's something going on internally within you, right? So like what you try to do is you cover it up, right? You bury it, right? And then you try to be happy, by giving happiness to other people,
Yeah.
but it's the other way around.
Right. But I
Right.
mean, anybody says anything, you want to go basically, even if you don't agree with it, you're going to go make them happy. That's just what it
Right.
is, right?
Right.
Even though you may not agree with it. Do you think that is what kind of led to some of the challenges you had with your first relationship? Or that got you into a place where you got into a relationship? Because a lot of times, obviously, we all want to blame, oh, the other person was such, right? But
Yeah.
then there are clearly red flags that now probably you can look back
Right.
and see those red flags. And now you're like, how is this even possible? But you think that's kind of what happens. And this is, we were kind of joking about it before we got started. It's a lot of times we think about, oh, it just happens to women. No, it goes both ways.
Right.
Right? Men have their issues, women have their issues. But what do you think? Can you look back now and see, well, there were a lot of red flags I could have avoided?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it wasn't just him, even though there was physical abuse,
Sure.
it was also, there were a lot of things that I also had to work on, right? I attracted, the person that I am, right? Like I had a lot of
Sure.
internal things that I needed to work on, childhood trauma. So did he, right?
Right,
That's
right,
the reason why he did what he
Sure,
did.
sure.
Right? So like now looking back, yes, there was a lot of things that I had to work on, right?
Right.
And he used to always tell me like, hey, you need to go get help.
Yeah.
But like it's a stigma, right?
Sure.
Like going to therapy, getting help, like in our community especially,
100%.
right? Because no one talks about it, right? And like it's they say like if you are going to therapy, it's like there's something wrong with you. Well, there's something wrong with all of us.
No. I mean, but see, the thing is, again, it's like, tomorrow, if somebody has diabetes, you wouldn't think twice about going to the doctor.
Right.
You need glasses. But yet, for some reason, still something like therapy. And I mean, I think a lot of people, I mean, I haven't been, but I'm sure 100% I could use therapy. Right?
Yeah.
Because clearly there are things that, sometimes I'll fly off the handle. And
Right.
then later I think about, I'm like, was it strategic that I flew off the handle? Right? Did I need to fly off the handle? And did I get the outcome that I wanted by flying off the handle? Or did I just make the situation worse and bully other people in? Right? We all do it to a different extent. We
Right.
all do it. And maturity is starting to understand those type of things. Right? And that's a continuing thing. Now looking back, right, that other person is who they are. Right? When you left, there was a lot of, I'm sure, hurt, I remember meeting you at that time. I mean, obviously, nobody was going to say something, but it was obvious to all of us that something in the background is going on, right? I mean, you never came out and said anything about that, but we were all, we could just see it, right? It was just, so you walk away from that relationship after, I think, a lot of trauma happened, from what I know.
There was a lot of trauma, yeah.
Right? You walk away. How did you start making amends? Because that's really what counts. What happened, there's nothing anybody can go back, fix it. How did you start working on you? And then we'll come to real estate.
I think I was just fed up. I was tired, like I felt like, man, I never got the love from my parents, and then this happened, in the first marriage, right? Which again, I mean, it was my fault as well, right? So like I think I was just tired of it, and that's where my personal development journey started, right? Like, and I started, just like doing research on personal development and traumas and all that, and I was like, I can work on myself, and I can do better things.
Were there some people that kind of you read their material or you went to their events or that kind of helped you along that journey? Who was that?
So I came across a center. It's called Body and Brain.
Okay.
Centers in Mount Prospect. At
Okay.
that time, we lived in Arlington Heights,
it.
right? But the reason why I joined them was because, like I listened to a lot of successful people and
Sure.
they said you need some sort of practice to, stay grounded, right?
Right.
So that's why I joined.
Got it.
Not to heal.
Right.
But little did I know that this practice would help me heal internally as well.
Got it. Okay.
Not only help me in the business, but also help me
Got it.
heal.
Because that was really what it is, right?
Right.
Is that internal healing, and that kind of translates to business, right? I think, and we all do it. I mean, I'm the master at it, which I don't want to deal with this, so I'm just going to busy myself here, right? But yet all the things that are wrong here, we carry it over to another part of our life. And then we get frustrated because we don't know how to deal with it. right? Okay.
Right.
So at the time when you came to Mastery, you had one child.
I was pregnant
You were
actually.
pregnant. Oh, you were full
Yeah.
on pregnant at that time,
Yeah.
right? So you got obviously remarried,
Yeah.
right? And you were full on pregnant. You come to Mastery, right? And at the time, I remember you were like a deer in headlights, right? I mean, no clue in
No
terms
clue. I
of
just looked like I was
right.
successful.
No, no, no. I mean, it's just like you didn't know what you didn't know at the
Right.
time,
Yeah.
right? So what was it at the time? You had a lot of issues going on in the background, right? Why did you show up to Mastery?
I showed up because I had left my job recently, right? My W-2. And, I thought, okay, I'll just stay home and, just be a housewife,
Sure.
But like after, I think it was a week, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not made to be a housewife, which is okay. There's nothing
Sure.
wrong with that.
Sure.
That's the hardest job that anyone can do, right? But I wanted to do something else. But I knew that I didn't want to go back to a W-2 because
Got it.
I hate sitting in a cubicle all day long, right?
Right.
So that's when I started doing research, right? And I came across a few different seminars,
Sure.
right? Yours wasn't the first one. We went to Tariq Al Musa's
Got
in Chicago, right?
Okay.
But we didn't resonate with him. And then we came across yours. We came
Sure.
across your 3-day event, and we resonated with you. We were confused at first whether you're Indian or not
Got
because
it,
of your
got
name.
it. Okay.
We were like, okay, is he Indian or what? His
Got
name
it,
is
okay.
Andrew. So yeah, we resonated with you, and that's why we signed up for your 3-day.
Got it. So at that time, initially when you started, right? I mean, today, obviously, you're going out and finding a lot of properties off market, right? I wanted you to come and talk about that. But why did you start looking off market? What was the reason for that?
The reason was because I think like I just didn't know how to talk to agents. I didn't have the confidence at that time, nor did I, have the money to buy from the auctions.
Sure.
Right? I think there were some few, deals that you guys presented to us, but we were scared to take them on because at that time we didn't have that much money, and we were like, okay, what if we have money stuck?
Right.
And then you talked about off marketing a little. So did Miss Sharon,
Sure.
right? And that, I don't know. I always was interested in like off marketing, going directly to the
To the
homeowner
seller.
rather than like buying a property from the MLS.
Sure.
I was always like so interested in it, and I just like wanted to dig deep and just get into it, and like figure it all out.
So I'll never forget one of your early on properties was a property in Streamwood.
Yeah.
Right. Remember which file I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Right. I remember you coming to the office talking to Rahul about that property, and at that time, you still own that property, or you sold
We
it?
still own it, and thanks to you guys,
Right.
like we were gonna sell it, right? Because we're like, oh, we're gonna get the $70,000 or
In
whatever,
profit,
in
right? And I'm like,
profit.
and I mean this sincerely, right? I mean, for every time I see you, you remind me of my sister, right? And I told you that I'm like, Miss Nita, because for all of us, this is a journey, right? And at the time, I could see it. I'm like, this woman is so wants to make it happen, but clearly, and I'm like, Miss Nita, I know the 70,000 today means the world to you, but you cannot sell the damn property, right? You cannot, because I mean, the reality is at the time, right? We're talking about 8 years ago. Your husband was making good money, but it's not like he was making huge amount of money, right?
No, not
I
at
mean,
that time. I think he was just making $70,000
Right,
at his
exactly,
job, right?
right?
Because he didn't have the green card yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't have a green card.
Yeah.
So obviously the job is underpaying him, right?
Right.
Big time. And I mean, so it's not like you guys had, he's making $150,000, $200,000.
No.
You can sit home and be a housewife, a kept woman. That wasn't the situation. I know a lot of times people will read that into the situation. That was not. And so here's somebody who's been through some challenging previous relationship. You get remarried. Now you're about to have a child. You quit your job, and you're going to be the next real estate queen bee, right? I mean, no. I mean, this is
Yeah.
this is kind of what it is, and there's a lot of people, Nita, that'll resonate because. And I was like, Miss Nita, you got to get a job. Right? Remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
But you're like, Andrew, but I think I can make it work. I'm like, well, then you're going to have to go off market, right? If you want deep discounts, and that particular property in Streamwood at the time, you wanted to flip it, right? That was your
Yeah.
first instinct. Oh my God, I found this property off market. I don't know if it was a short sale. Was it a short sale?
No, it was not a short sale.
not
it
a
was a
short sale.
pre-foreclosure.
It was a pre-foreclosure.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was a pre-foreclosure, and you find the property, and you bought it for what,
60,000.
$60,000, right? $60,000 to
Cannot
buy
get
the
it for 60.
I mean, even today, even I can't find that for $60,000, right?
No way.
So, and if you had flipped it at that time, you would have made $70,000.
I think so, yeah,
Right?
70.
About seven. And
Yeah.
at that time, that's probably your husband's year salary in one deal.
Right.
Right? In one deal.
Yeah.
And why did you decide? Because I genuinely feel that the small decisions that we make, right, lead to a big lifestyle change later. Because had you at those times, if your mentality had been, oh my God, I'm going 70,000, 60,000, 70,000, you obviously would have been able to buy a nicer purse. Maybe you would have been able to live a little bit better quality lifestyle. But I don't think today you would have 26 properties. That's for sure.
Right.
Right? Because the mentality would be different. Why did you decide that even at that time, that no, I'm going to bite the bullet and not sell the property?
I wanted to sell it. I think it was because of you and Rahul, because you guys, ingrained in us, to hold the properties, especially in good areas like that, right? It was in Streamwood. If it was like, somewhere in Dalton or Calumet City,
Sure.
I would be like, okay, let's sell it, right? But it's a appreciating area, right? So I think it was mainly because of you guys. I think I listened to you guys.
No, and we were adamant. We're like, Ms. Nita, you cannot sell it, cannot sell it, cannot sell it.
Right.
I mean, that's what we preach to begin with, right? That you cannot sell good quality properties. All the rest of the stuff, just
Yeah.
dump it and move on with life.
Right.
So let's kind of start with there, right? Now, today with about 26 rental properties, net income a month, in terms of cash flow, what is that?
I would say it's about 12,500 to 13,000.
12,000. So about
Yeah.
$500 per door.
Yeah, I mean,
Ballpark,
some
give
of
or
them
take.
is more, some of them is less. So,
Yeah. But
yeah.
ballpark, about $500 a door.
Right.
Got it. And you realize that today, legitimately certified, you're a multimillionaire. You realize that? The amount of
No, I
equity you
don't.
have in those many properties?
Yeah.
Right? That not only do you have cash flow, but in 8 years, there's a lot of people that probably were working, making 80, 90, 100,000 bucks at that time. Today, they may be making 150, 160. And here, you have kind of used that, the 257 strategy we talk about. Buy the property, rehab it. You got to buy with equity. You got to buy with cash flow. And you got to be able to refinance it and just do it over again. Right? So let's jump into off-market. Right? So for people that are new and they don't understand MLS versus off-market, what is off-market properties?
So off-market properties are off-market, they're not listed on the MLS, right? And they're distressed, right? They can be, in pre-foreclosure. It can be a probate, right? Divorce situation, So that's what off-market
So
is.
any property that is not listed on the MLS, right? We call it off-market, meaning it's not on the MLS, so it's not on Zillow or it's not on Redfin. It's not available in the multiple listing service. That's
Right.
all it is. So it could be a tax sale. It could be a landlord that is in trouble. It's just off-market is everything that is not on the multiple listing service. Now, in off-market, there's a lot of things you can do. Right? You could do probates, you could do pre-foreclosures, you could do chase tax liens, right? You could do a ton of different things, scavenger titles, whatever. What do you focus on and why?
I mainly focus on pre-foreclosures, but then I do a combination of pre-foreclosures, can't even talk. I do a combination of pre-foreclosures and probates.
Okay.
Mainly.
So you do pre-foreclosures and probates. And why?
Why? Because, the first deal that we were just talking about in Streamwood, it was a pre-foreclosure, right? And I just saw so much potential, and I was like, I need to just keep doing the same thing, right? So then I just went after the same kind of deals. But then, there's times when you'll come across, a pre-foreclosure where the homeowner has passed away, right? So then it's a probate.
Then it becomes a probate.
Right.
Sure.
Right. And you always want to, stack the leads as well, right? With multiple pain points, right?
Sure.
So it can be like a pre-foreclosure, probate, and vacant, right? So those are the kind of properties that I go after.
So basically, what she's talking about is there's something called lead stacking, which is, now again, every market is going to be different depending on what state you're in, what big metro you're in, or what small places you're in. And if you're in the Chicago market, right, Chicago suburbs market, and at a time we have anywhere from 18 to 30,000 pre-foreclosures, depending on how old do you go, right? I mean, the amount of leads that we have in Chicago
Yeah.
It is mind blowing, and everybody's all the time. Why would I go to Indiana? I'd go somewhere else. I'm like, guys, listen, we are in one of the most affordable and the largest markets in the country. New
Right.
York, not affordable. LA, not affordable, right? Dallas, expensive, a lot of competition. Chicago is very unique because of some other bad points that, oh, it's cold, this is a perception, and oh my God, there's crime, maybe 2%, 3% in terms of landmass wise. Yes, there is crime in that area, but that's it.
Right.
Rest of Chicago is much safer than 99% of America, actually, right?
Right.
But yet, Chicago has this bad rap, and yet we have some of the best prices and the most amount of leads anywhere in the country. Would that be true?
I agree with you.
Right.
Yeah, like we have enough, right?
Right.
In Illinois.
Oh, my God.
In our own backyard.
Oh, my God.
Right? I don't know why people, want to go out of state. Like
Right.
I have so many people calling me from
Right.
out of state, and I'll be like, okay, like if it's only gonna take me 5 minutes, I'll guide you, right?
Sure.
But if it's gonna take me more, like just pay me a wholesale fee or
Sure.
something. I'm
Right.
not interested in something
chasing a
unless
property.
if it's a really, really
Sure.
good deal, then
Absolutely.
maybe, okay. But other than that, no, there's enough out here.
I mean, and I always believe, it's much easier to do business in your backyard
Right.
than go, because it becomes an issue about time.
And
right?
it's a distraction.
It's a distraction,
Yeah.
100%. So when she was talking about list stacking, what she's talking about is you have a pre-foreclosure file. A pre-foreclosure file in our market takes anywhere from 2 years to 5 years to close.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's just how it is. Now, if you're in Florida, you'll be shocked, but that's just how the Illinois market is. You can look at it as a bad thing, or you can look at it as a good thing, right? But it gives you that much more time to mess with it. But if you take that and you look at a probate list and you stack them together, that's basically, which is the pain point is the property's in pre-foreclosure. The pain point is that the properties become a probate now. That basically is two different pain points. Right. And now what if there's taxes are going to deed? That would be a third pain point, right? And the more the number of pain points, the more motivated generally they're going to be. That's basically the whole idea behind
Right.
that, correct?
There's more motivation.
Got it. So in terms of marketing, right, because there's so many leads, do you focus on a geographic area? Because entire Chicagoland would be impossible. How do you decide what area you're going to focus on?
So like we don't invest, in the city of Chicago, right?
Got it.
And we do, like market to like all the counties, right? So like the ones that we go after are like the ones with the multiple pain points and high equity. That's it.
Got it. Multiple
Right?
pain points and high
And
equity.
high equity,
That's the
that's it.
secret, right?
Yeah.
But everybody wants, Andrew, but I want that secret list, right?
There is no secret list.
She gave it to you. She gave high equity. Why? Because guys, this is close to about 25,000 pre-foreclosure leads.
Right.
How many are you going to call? How many VAs are you going to hire, or however you're going to do it, right? And so she's saying, hey, why high equity? Explain that.
Because, you obviously, want to make sure there's enough margin, whether you're flipping, buying, or holding. Even if you're buying or holding, you still want to make sure there's some equity in the house.
Got it.
Right? And why not? If there are, deals
Better
out there
quality deals.
with high equity, then
Right.
then why not, right?
Exactly.
You're going to make more. You don't want to do a flip where, you're working on it for a few months and you're only making $15,000. Like, I'd rather not do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, and this is something that a lot of times when you're new, right, or if you've never done this for a long time, we think that the bigger the distress, the more I can help people. That's actually not the case. A lot of times, some of the best deals you will ever do is there's plenty of equity.
Right.
Plenty of equity. And the seller just does not want to deal with the headache, period.
No,
Right?
they're exchanging, equity for speed and convenience.
For speed and convenience, 100%.
Right.
100. I mean, that's, I think, very well put. That they are exchanging equity for speed and convenience, 100%.
Yeah, it's
right?
like a pawn shop.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is. And they're giving up. And some of the best deals I've ever done, you're like, oh my God, is this even real? Right? They're walking away from 100, 200,000 in equity because, number one, they clearly don't know what to do.
Right.
And they could care less, right? They could care less. And if there is no equity, if there's nothing, those deals take a hell of a lot of time. And there's this basic concept I talk about all the time in real estate, right? Just because you work hard does not mean you get paid. right? Just hard work, because you could basically take a property and work and work and work on it for a year. Your profit has nothing to do. So you got to be really, really strategic of
Right.
what properties you go invest time in. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, not only, like it's not just like working hard, it's also working smarter,
right.
right? Like, and it's not that, you should just go after like the pre-foreclosures with high
Sure.
equity, right? Or the ones with multiple pain points, or the ones that are scheduled to go to auction. You can also go after the ones that are new pre-foreclosures.
Yeah.
Right? Because somewhere in the middle, they're stuck,
Yeah.
they have buried their heads in the sand, right?
correct.
But somewhere like in the beginning and
In the
towards
beginning
the end.
or all the way close to the end, where
Right.
it's going to go to an auction.
Right.
Right. Those are generally going to be the hotter leads.
Right.
Right. That makes perfect sense. So, as far as marketing wise, you prefer mailing, you prefer calling, you prefer door knocking, you do online PPC. What's your preferred way of contacting people, and why?
Look, anything that you do is going to work.
Sure.
You have to be consistent. What happens is a lot of people are not consistent. I would say like 95% of the people, right? Or maybe 99%. I don't know. Do you agree with me? They're just not consistent. They start one thing and then they stop after 3 months, right? Like my first deal, it took me 8 months, right?
One deal, 8 months.
Yeah, 8 months.
Yeah.
But I didn't give up,
Right.
So whatever you do, it doesn't matter. But of course, cold calling and door knocking works the best,
Simplest, easiest,
Yeah, and you
the
don't need
least
that much
expensive.
money,
Yeah.
right? Like, so when we started, we didn't have that much money, right? So that's what led me to, like cold calling and door knocking,
Yeah.
right? Because the mailers add up.
Right.
PPC is expensive. Do not start with PPC. PPC is not for people that are new, right?
No, PPC and buying leads, it can get terribly expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Terribly expensive.
But
right?
even like if you hire VAs, and you don't need to hire VAs
Right.
in the beginning, do it yourself, right? If you hire VAs, what are you going to teach them
Right.
if you yourself don't know,
Yeah.
right?
No, 100%. And I mean, we see this in-house. We have much bigger success with guys that are 19, 20 years old, they're enthusiastic, they're fired up about calling, rather than the VAs from the best VA company to do the calling for you. Because
Right.
the VA they don't know, they don't understand the colloquial way of talking, they don't understand what questions to ask. There's always going to be a little bit of a language barrier. I don't care how good the VA is,
Yeah.
right? And it's just not, and genuinely, so if somebody's starting out new, right? And they say, oh my God, I have a full-time job. At the time you were pregnant, obviously with a new baby. What would you say to them? Like, how much, if they said, okay, I'm going to make a commitment, right? If they did, let's say, an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of calling a day, right? Religiously, 5 days a week. Do you think it'll work?
Oh yeah, it would definitely work.
100%, right?
100%, yeah.
Right. Because it's not, you don't need to do, and anybody, I know people make this, oh, I do 8 hours. Nobody does it, guys. Right? Nobody. You literally, even if you have a small list, but you consistently work it, I promise you, you will break through. Guaranteed you will break through, right?
Yeah.
It's not about what you know, because if you meet enough people, what'll happen is if you're just a normal human being, you will bumble into situations, literally, that'll work themselves out.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's just what it is. And you could get the best training in the world, the best thing in the world. But unless you actually go pick up the phone and actually make the call, there's nothing that replaces that.
It's just putting in the work, You can read books, you can do trainings and whatever, but if you're not taking the action, if you're not putting in the work, things are not going to happen for you. And you don't need to know everything.
You don't need to know.
I didn't know everything when I started, right? Like
Yeah, you didn't know list stacking.
especially
you
the
didn't
off
know-
market.
Sure.
I didn't know any of that, right? Like and even like as far as the probates, I knew some things from Ms. Sharon, right? Pre-foreclosures, whatever you guys taught us. But other than that, I didn't know anything. I just jumped in. I was like,
Right.
you know what? No matter what, I have to make this happen.
Right.
I'm not going back to a job. So
Right.
whether I have to cold call, door knock, whatever, but I'm going to do it myself because I want to learn, myself.
And this was you taking the lead.
Yeah,
Your
for a
husband
few
was trying to
years.
make a living, and your husband is not the most outspoken person.
No,
right?
he's not.
At all, right? He's the most reserved person. And I'm like, hey, you should bring your husband along, for the podcast. But he's not one of those guys. I mean, he's just not. He's supportive of you,
Yeah.
right? So as you started doing that, right, you pull a list. right? At that point, you're basically doing a skip trace against it. That's all you're doing, right? Now you're just picking up the phone. Do you prefer calling in the mornings, afternoons, evenings? What's the preferable time for you?
It depends on how much time a person has, right?
Right.
If a person only has 2.5 hours, I would say call, have a list that's stacked.
Right.
Call in the morning, right, when they're on their way to work. And then you can either call at lunchtime or call in the evening.
Okay.
Right? 2-3 hours a day is enough. Like you said, 8 hours, no one's going to cold call. You can't be efficient
Right.
if you're going to cold call, for that long. Even the cold callers that you guys hire, they're not efficient, even though they may be calling, which we don't even know that they're calling for 8 hours.
They're not effective. They're not effective.
Right.
I did almost since the age of 19, actually 20, till the age of 32. Every day I used to do 500 dials, that got me 90 contacts, and I was doing it for real estate appointments, right? As a real estate agent, I was calling FSBOs, expired listings, cancels, right? Every day. That's what I did. And guys, believe me, you do 6 hours of that. It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting, right? But at a point, it becomes fun, right? I literally made it a game, and that's what you have to do. And my game was, how many houses can I break into today, right? And people would hang up, and I would call them back the next day. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I hung up on you by mistake, couldn't reach you. Clearly, they hung up on me, right? And they're like, they didn't know what to say. Right, because they're like, and I'm like, maybe did I offend you or did my phone hang up? I'm not sure. They're like, no, I was busy. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just wanted to tell you that I just wanted to apologize. Thank you. They're like, oh, okay. No, I was busy. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, by the way, when you think about the house, think about me, the annoying guy who called you, then hung up, then called you back. Now, what did I just do? Right? It's a level change.
Right.
Right. Because you just hung up on me. I'm not going to call you and annoy you that day, but next day, even if you call them, even if you leave a message, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm the annoying guy. I called you yesterday. I think maybe I caught you at the wrong time.
Right.
I apologize. Immediately, if you heard that message,
right,
or if you got that text, guess what's going to be? You're like, yeah, man, I was annoyed. You caught me in the middle of something. But the third time I call, guess what the opening line is? I'm the annoying guy that called you the first time you hung up. Second time called you to apologize. I just wanted to follow up. And people will automatically laugh. Okay, what do you want? Right? I mean, it's just, and a lot of times it's developing that, that taking a situation and making it something a little bit different. And everybody's barrier comes down. Everybody's busy. I mean, think about when you get a call from Comcast or from any service provider.
Right.
What's your attitude? Probably not the best.
No, you hang up or you say, hey, I'm busy, I gotta go.
Right.
And
we're all busy. And it's
right.
And that you're interrupting a human being's day.
Right.
Right. So whenever you're doing the calling, you use a dialer. What do you do?
No, we don't use a dialer.
You don't use a dialer?
No.
You just call it from your cell phone? Or you use like a Mojo dialer, nothing like that?
So like right now I have cold callers that use Skype.
Skype. Okay.
Yeah. And
they use Skype?
Yeah, you can use Skype.
Really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The reason why we don't use a dialer is because, like, let's say you skip trace a whole bunch of leads, right? And you put them in a dialer, right?
Okay.
Without manually, skip tracing them or, like, doing research on them, right? So who are you calling? You're calling people that have passed.
Correct.
Right? So we're also calling relatives, right? So it becomes challenging using a dialer when you're, calling relatives, calling the heirs.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
So that's the reason why we don't use a dialer.
Okay. So you use basically Skype.
Yes.
And then behind Skype, let's just say you got, so you use VAs right now.
Yes.
Okay. So you use trained VAs to call. And how many hours a day do they call?
They call 4 hours a day.
4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many VAs do you have now?
2, and then I have 2 door knockers.
Okay, 2 VAs and then 2 door knockers.
Yeah.
Okay, and so for the VAs, you're just paying them by the hour, right? And then the door knockers, how do you compensate them?
So I tried, working with like some people, who I know,
Right.
like from the communities,
Sure.
right? And it wasn't working out because a lot of them have full-time jobs, and it becomes challenging for them.
Right.
They want to do the work, but they're tired end of
Right.
the day. They have families to go to, right?
Sure.
So like I quickly figured out that it's better to pay someone. So I'm paying $12 an hour to the drivers, and they also only do 4 hours a day.
Only 4 hours
Only
a day?
4 hours a day.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. And so how do you know that they're actually going and doing the door knocking? How do you track that?
Because I'm always talking to them.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're always talking.
There is
with,
an app that you can use, but
right, but I mean, you found good people
Yeah.
that you work with, and they're willing to go do that. And how did you find these people? Did you run an ad? What did you do?
so for the VAs, it was Abdullah's.
Okay,
Abdullah's
got it.
VAs,
Okay.
right? I forgot his company name,
Okay.
but they're from his. And then I also have one of them is from his, and then one of them I've been using for 3 years. And the door knockers, they were just from Craigslist.
They were from Craigslist.
Yeah.
Okay, so you found those in Craigslist.
Yeah.
Those. Okay, great. So as far as with the door knockers, right? They go and you give them the area, and you have given them a script. You've told them what to say, and they're going doing the door knocking.
Yeah, so they have the stacked
Okay, the stack
list, right?
Okay.
So that's why they don't have to do it for longer hours, right?
Okay.
Because we have like a stacked list. It's not like I'm giving them like 100 leads a day
Sure.
or whatever. That there's no way they're going to get it done in 4
Right,
hours.
right.
And we keep our script simple. I tell them go out there and be friends with these people,
Right.
right? Because if you're going out there and saying that, hey, we're cash buyers in the area, they get turned off. People
Sure.
get turned off, right? I would if I was, like not in the right state of mind, about to lose my home.
Sure.
And someone comes to me and says, hey, I'm a cash buyer in the area, like I'll be like, get out of here,
Right.
I would not be interested,
Got it.
right? So like our guys, they go and ask like, if anyone has talked to them about the different options that they have for their house.
Sure.
Right? It's like an open-ended question. Then they, most of them open up. Not everyone, but most of them open up.
Got it. And whenever you're doing, because you happen to live in the northwest part of Chicagoland area, right? And from there, do you go to south suburbs also? Do you go far? Because they could be driving 50, 60 miles, or do you generally do kind of grouped into a certain area type of door knocking?
So there's one in the northwest suburbs, and then there's one in the south suburbs. Like I told you, we don't do the city of Chicago,
The city of
right?
Chicago. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, you have one doing all the door knocking in northwest suburbs, and you have one
Yeah.
doing in the southwest suburbs.
Right.
That's kind of how you
right.
divide
And
it.
you remember, I'm not going after a lot.
Right.
Right.
Right. Okay. So once they do the door knocking, they're making the initial contact. They're just making friends with them. At that time,
Yeah.
they're not like, hey, have you thought about selling? When do you want to sell? Can we buy the property tomorrow? That's not what you're doing at that
They're
point.
pretty much building rapport.
They're
with
building
them.
rapport,
Yeah.
right? They're building rapport. They want to gain some level of trust. So, Nita, how important is building rapport with a seller, especially when you're doing off markets?
It's really important to build rapport, right? Because these people are not in the right state of mind. They're going through a lot, right? Like you almost, have to become a friend to them, right? And keep providing value, right? So they can trust you. Once they trust you, they'll even sign a POA,
Right.
with you, right?
Right.
And they will also sell to you, for a good price if they trust you and you have the rapport, right? If you have the rapport, if there's other investors, going to them, they're not going to work with them,
Right.
because they like you, right? People do business with people that they like, right? And are there going to be some people that will absolutely not do business with you? But yeah, of course, that has nothing to do with you. It's whatever they have going on in the background.
And sometimes for some people, just understand, it's purely money.
Right.
We just lost a deal in Park Ridge, and somebody came in, offered $50,000 higher, right? And the seller's like, "Oh my God, you guys were the most consistent. You guys followed up, but it's just this person offered us an unbelievable price,
Yeah.
right? And so we have to go with them, and it is what it is. But a lot of times, people don't take the time to understand the seller situation. And a lot of times when people are in these types of situations, they just have so much they want to get out, right? And so building rapport probably becomes more important than anything else.
Right.
Right? And once you have rapport with people, like you said, people who like you, trust you, end up generally doing business with you.
Right.
Right? Any other tips or anything you would say to people that are going to get on the phone after listening to this and being inspired as to, I always believed that, if you're on the phone, stand up, right? Walk around a little bit, right? Don't sit down, because you have bigger energy, more energy when you're standing up. You don't feel as tired, right? If there's if you're fortunate to have a window in the room, right? Look outside, smile, right? And smile. And it sounds silly, right? I mean, I hate smiling whenever I'm stressed out or miserable, but it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Right. Whenever you call somebody and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" versus, "Hey, how are you doing?" Right. Immediately, because the only thing on a phone is the cadence of your voice, your tonality, right? Your voice modulation, whether you can basically, empathize with them or not. Those are the only things that they have to deal with, right? And that makes a big difference. Do you? Because you're not somebody who goes up and down, right, in her emotions. But have you had to pick up some of those speech patterns?
Yeah, of course. Like what you said, like a lot of people that cold call, they're standing and, cold calling, right?
Sure.
Like, and I always tell people, like, get yourself in the right state of mind
Right.
before you make the calls,
Right.
right? Like, if you're not in the right state of mind, right? Like, you're not gonna have good energy,
Right.
right? You may as well just take a break,
Right.
or like take a day off and
Right.
do it, the next day, right? Yeah, tonality is important, right? Because you're not in front of them; you're on the phone.
Right.
Right? Just because they can't see you doesn't mean they cannot sense you.
Right. 100%. No, that makes perfect sense.
Right. So like, and then in between, do some push-ups or whatever you got to do, to be energetic. Right. You do have to have the energy, when making the phone calls.
Makes perfect sense. They want to have some level of communication with them so that they will engage in further dialogue.
Right.
That's really what it is.
Right.
Okay. So at that time, the lead is turned over to them. To use, excuse me.
Yeah. So if someone is interested,
Okay.
then, they would schedule an appointment for a phone call first.
Got it.
Right? You don't want to go out there,
Sure.
like unless if they're ready to sign the contract, right?
Sure. Okay. So you're doing almost pre-qualification, building more rapport, figuring out what the issue is,
Right.
making sure that this is a qualified lead that's willing to engage with you guys. And at that point, you're going to go out or they get the contract signed?
A lot of times I go,
Okay.
But they do sometimes.
Sometimes they will go.
Yeah.
Okay.
But most
So-
of the times it's me. I'm still doing the acquisitions.
Okay, you're still doing acquisitions. Okay.
Yeah.
So you go look at the property, right? So now let's talk about like techniques of buying, right? I tend to be a huge believer that should have good equity in the property. I'm not buying a property for slim margins.
Yeah.
I'm not doing a flip if I can't make a minimum $50,000-$60,000 minimum, right?
I agree
mean,
with you.
if not more,
Right.
Are you following the same model still?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I told you, if you're doing a flip and you're making $20,000-$30,000, like in whatever time it's going to take you 4 to 6 months, it's not worth it.
Got it.
But you're right. Yeah, at least $50,000 to $60,000.
Minimum 50 to 60.
Yeah, and then we're not doing that many wholesales anymore. We were mainly buying and holding, right? We were doing some before, because we needed the reserve.
Sure.
Right, but not anymore.
Right. Okay. So you're keeping those properties.
Most of them, yeah.
Most of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And as far as in terms of, so there is kind of our way of buying, which is you're identifying a lot of equity. You're using private money funds to buy the property, or you're using hard money to buy the property, and you're using the private money to rehab the property and or hard money. Are you still using a lot of private money?
Yeah, all private money, and they're all from Mastery.
Okay.
We've been using the same 4 lenders since the last 8 years.
Last 8 years.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they're all from Mastery.
They're all from Mastery.
Yeah.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
We love that because that's one of the biggest secrets of Mastery is that you build just like, guys, we're all in this. This is a long-term business relationship, friendship that we keep growing with. Right, I mean that's really what the point is, and so you just kind of recycle their money back and forth and back and forth. They're happy to give you loans
Yeah.
because you're a predictable performer, right?
Right.
Really, that's what it is. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit of Subject 2. Subject 2 is all the rage, right? At one point, or you still are a part of Pace's community,
Yeah.
right? How many properties are you doing Subject 2?
So most of them are cash deals.
Okay.
Subject twos, I would say probably like one a month right now, 1 or 2 a month.
1 or 2 a month.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been a little bit away from Subject 2s, right? I just want to be clear about it. And the
Yeah.
reason, my belief is this, that a lot of times, this is just my opinion. This does not mean that that's, what I have seen is a lot of times once people go down the Subject 2 path, and please correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of times they start going to the poorer and poorer neighborhoods. Right? And they start going to worse and worse and worse properties and try to jam everything in.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do Subject 2. I'm like, but why? But Andrew, I can do a deal. I'm like, but why are we doing a deal?
Right.
Is this really productive? Now, if you're buying a property in LaGrange, if I bought a property in LaGrange, 3,000, seller has 3.5% carry back, right? So he carried it basically. She put in, she I guess gave him 20,000, put another 30, 40,000 rehab. Property's worth 550 all day long, right? But if the property has no equity, the property has nothing, and you're just jamming a subject to, I just think people get themselves in a heck of a lot of trouble. Your opinion?
I agree with you 100%. Like I always, like people that come to me with deals, you know, if there's no equity, I'm not even looking at it, right? Like, and I tell them, go after the ones that are, you know, that were sold less than 5 years ago, right? Because those are not going to need that much work. And even if they were sold less than 5 years ago, make sure there's some equity, right? At least like I would say 20, 30% equity, right? But then there, like most of the people are, you know, like bringing deals where there's no equity. Like what if like there's vacancy? Not what if there is going to be vacancy, right? And then there's going to be maintenance. Where are you going to get that money from?
Exactly.
Right?
And a lot of times whenever people get attracted, right? I mean, I think it's a great, what Pace did with it with subject to genius, right? In terms of marketing, no question about it, right? And it's a technique. And that's what sometimes people forget is it's another technique to buy properties.
Right.
Nothing wrong with the technique. But again, guys, if you have a screw and you want to kind of put it in a plank of wood, you're probably not going to use a hammer. Right? Because that's not the right tool for that particular job. Can you get it in? Probably. But not only are you going to destroy the piece of wood, you're probably going to destroy the screw, right? Doing that. And I think that's what happens sometimes. People will latch onto an idea, not understand. Real estate at the end of the day is about some basic things. Number one is, does it have equity? Right? Does it cash flow, and or can you move it out either on a wholesale or a flip and make a lot of money with it? That's it. If you don't have that, there's nothing there. Right? So as far as in terms of, do you do a lot of JVs?
A few. You know, it's not that all of our deals are JVs. No.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's also like another distraction. If you're good at finding deeply discounted deals, why not do them yourself?
Okay.
You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with JVing, but then sometimes it does become challenging if the other person is new and they're not bringing too much to the table.
And you tried that at one point.
I
And that
did.
was an interesting
That's why
experience.
you're
I remember
asking.
that, right? No, that's why I'm asking. I'm setting you up.
Yeah.
You know, oh my God, that person was terrible.
That's the
not
problem that
deal.
I have, though, because, you know, the people that want to JV, they're not bringing too much to the table.
Yes,
right?
100% agreed. And not that if somebody has a great deal and you have it under contract, you just don't know how to move it. Talk to Nita. She'll be happy to, you know, if she makes good money. But we decided this just yesterday. I was talking to Omar. He's like, man, all these people call us. They don't even have the property under contract. They're like, oh, I got a deal. No, you don't have a deal. You have a property. There's a million other properties, right? You don't have it under contract. You have nothing, right? And if we're going to do all the work and you're chasing a deal, there's no meat on it, we're wasting our time. You're wasting your time. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So where does it go from here? What are you trying to do today? You're right. I see you now. You're at least out in the public. First, you were a secret agent, right? No, I mean, I love it. I mean, this is after a long time, we're talking, you've kind of taken the base idea, right? And you've just added off-market to it, and you've just grown, right? I'm so happy to see that, because I was telling your husband, I saw him, he was here for a closing the other day, and I'm like, man, what is with your wife with all these subject twos? This is what I thought, right? I'm like, I hope you guys are not buying crazy deals. This is the first thing I said to him, right? He's like, no, Andrew, no. We're buying really good deals. I'm like, great. I'm so happy, right? Because I'm like, dude, I hope you're not going down a path of just buying, but what you're doing, I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's a logical end. Where do you see yourself from this point out?
Yeah, so like, as you know, right, my husband, he left his job 3 months ago. I think he shared that with you, right?
Yeah, you told me about that.
So like, you don't see him that much, but behind the scenes, he does a lot, right? I just want to mention that, right? Like, he takes care of the renovations, he finds the tenants, takes care of the rentals and all of that, right? So like, we're doing it together now.
So he's the operations behind the front end you're handling, but you create the mess and he has to clean up the whole thing. I mean, no, but somebody's got to do it, right? Somebody's got to do it. But and so how did you guys make that decision? Because that's a big decision, right? To leave his job. You guys kind of did a bunch of wholesale, put some money aside, did a bunch of flips. How did you decide that?
It took a long time, right?
8 years.
8 years, yeah. It took a long time, and like I think even last year, he wanted to leave, but I said just hold off, a little bit because you want to make sure you have a good reserve, right? Like you don't want to leave your job right away. It takes years,
Right.
right? So I mean, we feel comfortable, because we know we, are doing a few deals a month, right? So like
You're
when
on a good trajectory and you can hold that much,
Right.
trajectory over time.
Right. So that's the reason, But like, if you're not doing a few deals in a month, then I would not recommend it to anyone, right? Like they say, like work during the day at your day job, right, and then grind after hours,
Right.
right? And you have to do that for a long time,
Right.
right?
100%.
And there's so
100%.
many people out there who want to leave their jobs, right? And I would be like, hold off, like you're gonna get yourself in trouble. Like I remember, like you always, said to me as well, like Miss Nita, calm down.
Right.
You remember, like
Right.
you'd always be like, calm down,
Right.
because I was so like excited, right,
Of
in the
course. Of
beginning. But then
course.
little did I know that, okay, yeah, that excitement is there, like I'm burning inside, to do something. But then you also have to put in
You
the
have to
work.
temper it. Nobody's saying that you can't have those dreams. And guys, this what we're talking about today, where her husband was able to leave a job, right, and walk away. It's 8 years, right?
Yeah.
This is not made today. The confidence, the ability to do this takes time, right? And it's the first 2-3 years. I mean, yeah, she's find some properties, yes, because she had done some work. But really, she was paying the price. Now she figures it out. And finally, as she starts working on herself, the real estate starts working, right?
Right.
I mean, this is a process that goes in tango, right? This is not, you're not generally going to be just by yourself. Right?
Right.
And suddenly in 2 years, you're Mr. Rich. Even if you have 10, 15, 20 properties in 2 years, you're not Mr. Rich, right? Is what people don't understand or fail to understand is when you're buying properties at that pace, you're burning a lot of money. You're
Oh, yeah.
burning a hell of a lot of money.
Right.
Right? So you may have a lot of properties, but you're not going to have significant cash flows because they're all going back into doing more construction, doing more, and you have to get to a place where it becomes a self-sustaining business, right?
Right.
So for a lot of women, right, because today we have so many women that come to Mastery, that come to the RIA, and we don't see that in the general real estate community. We don't see that, but someone like you, someone like Gina, Farah, Mr. Rose, you guys are a huge inspiration to them, right? So if you talk to those women that are maybe single or maybe are kind of doing by themselves as a single mom, whatever, is it possible for them?
Of course it's possible, right? I made it happen. Like, look, everyone comes in at a different level, right? Some people come in with a little money, some people come, with no money. But I would say surround yourself, with women who are, grinding, who are putting in the work, and who have a strong mindset, I would say, right? Because that's so important, right? Yeah. Like, as a mother, like, we're so busy with kids, right? Like, I use my kids as an excuse for a long time, right? But do not use your kids as an excuse, right? I think we use our kids as an excuse because somewhere we don't believe in ourselves, right? So we use all sorts of things like my kids, my house, like we don't have all the resources. You do have resources, like Andrew has meetups all the time, right? He has a 3-day event that you can come to, right? Like there are resources out there. You just need to find them. So I would say surround yourself with strong women.
And I think that goes a long, long way because a lot of times you'll meet a lot of people that maybe, see, if you're dead broke, right? If you're dead broke, talking to other people that are dead broke, it doesn't help. I'm just telling you this,
Right.
right? That, I mean, if you don't know how to swim, you don't want to basically latch on to somebody who doesn't know how to swim. Both of you are going to drown quicker. That's all that's going to happen, right? You got to find somebody that has, that is 4 steps ahead of you, 10 steps ahead of you, and then figure out how you can provide value, right? Just today, and I know this used to be a concept, which is, oh, Andrew, I'm going to call you. Let's go for lunch. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. I don't need a cup of coffee. I don't need a steak dinner. She doesn't need that. We're busy people, right? We're not impressed by, food. We're not impressed by those things. Yeah. But what you have to find out is what can you do to add value?
Right.
Right? If you can go out, find a lead that wants to engage and you don't know what to do, it's okay. Pick up the phone, call her. She'll be happy to work with you. Why? Because profitable for you, profitable for her. That's the best way and the best compliment you can pay. And you start building relationships, start showing up at the meetings. And if you're not frustrated, you're not growing.
I agree with you.
Right.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of pressure. You're going to be frustrated when you have deals falling apart. People leaving you, you're leaving people, right? So it's just that like you have to make yourself so strong. You have to work on like everything, right? Like you have to work on your confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth, all of this. And if you don't, again, like you always say, right? Like there's that 2-3% of the people that are born with the good energy, right? But most of us
are not. Yeah.
Right? I definitely wasn't. I feel like I was born with like really bad energy because I had to do so much work on myself, right?
No, but I think most of us, like I'm the biggest pessimist ever, right? I'm a biggest long-term things are going to work.
Yeah.
But in the short term, I'm a pessimist, right? And it's like you can't help who you are. You are who you are.
Right.
Just please understand that you got to start working on those challenges. And you have successful people that are miserable. You have successful people with a great attitude, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
That, and so you have to, that becomes a huge, huge, huge part of it. And if you're that person, oh my God, it's not going to work for me. It only works for that person. It just, guys, fine. Find a tall bridge and jump. Because or fix your attitude, right?
Yeah.
Because you have only two choices. What is the choice? Either you're going to fail. But if failure is not an option, then what else is left?
Right.
Right? Success. And that's how you have to look at it. Anything else I may have missed, Nita, that needs to be touched on?
I would say, recently I started being out there,
Sure.
being on social media, right? Like you get a lot of hate from people, right? Like
oh my God. That's something I've never heard.
and
right?
from your own people too.
Right.
Right? So the message that I want to give out is support the people.
Right.
It's not easy being out there. It takes a
Right.
lot of courage. It takes a lot of confidence, right? Like people that start out, right, are not going to be perfect, right? I'm not perfect either, right? But support them. It's not that they're, trying to show off, trying to, become famous. It's none of that. It's, more so like helping other people, right? Because you've been on this journey, right? Like with challenges, right? And you have overcome things now. You want to help others, right? So like that would be my biggest message is support, people that are like trying to, be out there.
Everybody is your friend when you are equal to, but no more greater than them.
Yeah.
Right? As if you're lower than them in terms of economic status, in terms of whatever, people are like, oh, right? If you're equal to them, then they're your friend. That's just how life works. The day they think, right? They think, oh my God, you got ahead a little bit, or you may be better. Suddenly, especially social media, right? And again, we have all been jealous. It's called a human state of being. All of us, right?
Yeah,
Including
all
me.
of
This
us.
is just what it is. But you have to check yourself at that time and say, hey, listen, right? Is this not possible for me? Right? And then if our own community, our own friends, our own people don't support, we said this in Mastery all the time, right? That, hey, if you see somebody from Mastery doing something well, right? Support them, right?
Right.
Because it's hard to get that support, especially for an entrepreneur. Most people don't understand what you're trying to achieve, right?
Right.
Because it's out of the box and it's not very traditional. People are like, oh, you're going to do that real estate thing. Oh, how is it working for you? Right?
Yeah.
Is it really going to work out? Oh, maybe you got your first deal. Oh, maybe that was just luck, right?
Yeah.
And, no, you've heard this,
Yeah,
right? Oh, let me know. And people will check in with you, literally, right? And they're like, oh. And after you go to a certain point, they won't even engage with you because they're like, oh my God. And it's not you, it's them that is the problem.
Well, they feel threatened,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And then they feel like they don't relate to you anymore, which is okay.
Right, which is fine.
Which is fine,
Yeah.
right? That's why God puts, new people in front of you.
Right.
Right? But yeah, whatever, like if someone's trying to do something new, support them.
Right.
Like
100%.
for the longest time, my own sister,
Right.
she used to say, like, go get a job.
Right.
What are you making? You're not making anything, right? But you have to block out all the noise, right? Because you are going to have so many people, especially your own people and your own friends, not just your own family, your own friends, right, that are going to say things. You're going to have to block it out.
Right. No, 100%. Nita, I'm so happy you're here, right? You look great.
Thank
right?
you.
And I mean it sincerely. you look younger today than 8 years ago. Right? It shows, right? It clearly. So whatever you've been doing, keep doing it, right? Because clearly it's working, and I love it that not only are you helping yourself, but I think you talking about it, you talking about your journey. There's a lot of times the painful moments we want to keep in our heart, the good
Right.
moments we want to put in a pocketbook, right? But you're talking about it. I think that gives a lot of people hope that where you are doesn't mean you're going to be there tomorrow. Right? That this is just temporary and you got to be able to get over it. So, guys, if you like the podcast, please like it, love it, share it with your friends. That's how we get to grow. This is Andrew Holmes with Miss Nita Patel. If you have deals and you need somebody that you have a property under contract, talk to her, right? You're listening to Cashflow for Life. Thanks a bunch and talk to you soon.